Hi there, my name is Daniel Neely. I'm the manager of Community Resilience at the Wellington Region Emergency Management Office here at Wellington, New Zealand. And I'm here with Daniel Homsey, the Director of Neighborhood Resilience for the City and County of San Francisco, one of the Rockefeller Foundation's 100 Resilient Cities, and the Presidio Institute Fellow. Welcome, Daniel.
Hello, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming down today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you do in San Francisco?
Absolutely. So I work for the City and County of San Francisco. I work for Naomi Kelly, our city administrator, and my day-to-day responsibilities are really learning how we can position our communities to be successful during any time of stress and the condition of being resilient. And so I'm honored to have a fantastic cohort of organizations and agencies, not just city agencies, but private sector partners, businesses. We have foundations, academic institutions, local universities, nonprofits, and of course our amazing community leaders and faith-based organizations. And we're taking a very holistic approach. I guess the term to use is akin to what FEMA calls the whole community approach, to looking how we can really get ready for that time when all of us are going to have to come together and achieve great things. And the lessons that we're seeing all over the world, as you and I saw when we were in Christchurch just the last few days, is that no one agency, no one organization is going to achieve that goal. That it's really important before we have to come together and accomplish these tasks is to build those relationships that are rich in trust and reciprocity so that when it comes time to meet the needs of our residents, the people who count on us every day to be successful, that we're not meeting for the first time and working out our operational differences or gaps, but those are all put to bed perhaps years before, and we can work seamlessly together to meet the goal that we collectively have already decided on.
Wow. It's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit some of the initiatives that you're working on in San Francisco?
Well, there's a myriad of initiatives. I'm honored to manage something called the Neighborhood Empowerment Network. The cohort I just described of agencies are encapsulated in this initiative, the network. And what we do is you try and build tools, resources, and methodologies that neighborhoods can plug into to achieve their goals. That's one of the most important qualities of our work is that we really want to be reflective of the community's priorities. I feel that to date, historically, governments sort of come in and told communities what their problems are, what their solutions are, and sort of get out of the way while we implement them. And ultimately, things never really move the needle. We're advancing in San Francisco sort of an inverted pyramid model, which is, sure, government's big and powerful, but we're really here at the beckoning of our community leaders. So the idea being is to align ourselves with all the other agencies and organizations and entities that care about our neighborhoods, but then listen to the community, afford them a blank slate to come together and figure out what their goals and priorities are, and then deploy our assets in reflection of those. It's sort of maybe perhaps a logical approach, but it's innovative by many people's standards. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit time consuming because you have to provide them sort of the technical support to go through that process. But on the back end, the work that you generate has a higher impact rate and a higher participation level because the communities own it. After all, it was their idea.
Mm-hmm. And I believe this has been going on for a few years now in San Francisco. And you've been leading this. What are some of the outcomes that you've seen just in that short period of time?
Well, for about 7 years now, we've had the Neighborhood Empowerment Network up and running. Initially, we had the tremendous support of Mayor Gavin Newsom, who's now Lieutenant Governor for the state of California. And then I was honored to then also work for the city administrator, now Mayor Ed Lee. And it's been overwhelming. We've learned a lot. We're exploring a new paradigm shift in how we operate as a city. We're blessed to be a well-resourced city, being a city and county in San Francisco with a $7 or $8 billion budget that affords us some flexibility that other cities don't have as far as how they use their resources and how they approach challenges. And so we're very appreciative of that. And being a fourth-generation San Franciscan, there's no greater honor than to have a chance to give back to our city. But what we're trying to do is create a strategy and approach and a methodology that could be scalable, that could go anywhere, any town where people who care come together and work together. We believe this approach will work. And that's what we're emphasizing every day as we develop our resources. The primary program that we have is called the Empowered Communities Program. And this is really the construct that these values that I've been describing really materialize. We've developed a system that we're testing in multiple neighborhoods. And what's really exciting about our program, and I encourage everyone who want to learn more to visit our website, empowersf.org, and then visit the program area, Empower Communities program, is you can see there's multiple city neighborhoods that we're working with. And what's exciting is, I believe, is that many of these neighborhoods are actually pursuing different challenges using the same system. And so some neighborhoods are really trying to figure out how to get more services and resources in their community so that they can better serve and meet the needs of the families in their community. Other neighborhoods want to just sort of learn how to work together on anything. So the one neighborhood would be the OMI neighborhood, which is focusing on families. The Outer Sunset neighborhood is focusing on a streetcar turnaround and how to make it a community hub, because they don't really feel like people really connect with each other, engage as much as they could. I know you, for example, you've had Daniel Aldrich here visit with you in the past, and a lot of the work he's advancing about how the real secret weapon for times of stress is social capital. Well, you can't create social capital simply driving home, getting out of your car, and walking in your house. You've got to take the time to grab a cup of coffee on the corner, but have a place to sit down and begin to see people and talk to them. And that's kind of what that group is functioning out there with the NJUDA project, which the njudahproject.org is where you can learn about that project as well. But now the pivot for us has been to say, okay, what do we want to do now? How do we want to take it to the next level expressly around disaster resilience? So working with Harvard University and the lessons learned from Katrina, we've created a snapshot of what we think resilience is. And we try to do it in a way where we don't just focus on hard outcomes, like our sewer pipes are bigger, our buildings have all been strengthened. That's important. But what we're looking at resilience as being a condition. And what we're focusing on is the condition of a neighborhood. Can a neighborhood come together and govern itself? Can it manage resources? Can it communicate? Can it organize? Can it problem solve? And so what we're offering is that if no matter why a community comes together to work on something, it doesn't matter as long as they achieve those conditions. And why I say that's important is because in New Orleans, Thomas Wooten, a graduate of Harvard, identified that the neighborhoods that bounced back fastest after disaster were the ones that pre-event were working every day on challenges that came before them. Not preparing for a hurricane, but figuring out how to get their kids to go to school and after school stay out of trouble. And that those projects actually built that condition so that they accelerated through recovery. And it's important to note that the drivers for recovery in San Francisco at the neighborhood level were not income levels and not education levels. It was pre-event social capital, trust, and reciprocity around hyper-local problem solving. So in the neighborhoods that we're working with now, with the support of the Center for Disease Control, Diamond Heights, and in the Bayview, we're moving that needle forward. We're helping them craft a vision of disaster resilience. We're positioning them to really understand how do you influence city government and all the other actors that are working in their community every day, from the local pharmacy, the local supermarket, the local bank, and saying, how can we work with them to increase our mitigation and make sure that those assets reopen as quickly as possible? How can we get the local utility company to replace the sewer pipes that break regularly so we have ones that don't break? So our seniors and the most vulnerable in our residents don't go without water for 4 or 5 days, since our analysis has shown that they almost need water immediately. And we also need to explore, how do we get things like sewage out of the neighborhood? And these in-depth conversations with our residents are helping them understand the scope of what it takes to bounce back during times of stress. And as you and I saw personally in Christchurch, that's really what people are living with every day down there. And that's probably something perhaps they never thought would be their responsibility.
Indeed, indeed. So tell us, what exactly are you doing in New Zealand at the moment?
Well, I'm honored to be down here as a guest of course, your prestigious organization, REMO, and David Johnston's team over at Massey University, and we're down here participating in a sort of a meetup, if you will, of thought leaders that are really coming together here. And I want to salute the country of New Zealand for really, offering this platform, not only internally on how they can position itself to deal with the many challenges that come this way. And it's really overwhelming when you look at what New Zealand is confronted with as a country all the time. I spoke to one of your colleagues yesterday, and she says her community has had 30 major events over the last 32 years. San Francisco, our last major event was the earthquake in 1989, and that was merely something I think that here in, to some extent, would be considered a minor event by the scale of what Christchurch is doing. Not to minimize the loss that we had during that experience, but the scope and depth and impact really is overwhelming from what we've seen down here. And I want to, salute the country of New Zealand, saying we don't want to just learn how to position ourselves to succeed moving forward, but we want to share that. We want to become an international platform. And the event that you and I attended last night with the institute that's being created here, that really is looking outwardly in, is a symbol of that culture. And we're very impressed. The work that Remo's doing in revisiting civil defense and positioning it in a modern narrative and around people's goals, not only for their concern for their community, but for their passion for their community. And I think that's a fascinating pivot to say, how can an organization like that contribute every day to their community's goals, not just be there a knight in shining armor in times of stress, which is great. But the truth is that people who are drawn to this field, they care about their neighborhoods every day. And you'll often find that the folks that you see that are wearing a civil defense jacket are actually the ones that are also out there running local barbecues and helping run a soccer league or something like that, or football, I apologize. And that's the power, I think, of this movement is, to leverage those folks and turn them into champions. So when they do go to football practice and they're talking to the parents, while they're leaving, they're saying, hey, by the way, we got a big storm coming this weekend. Are you guys ready? And realizing that parents love their children more than they love themselves, and leveraging that relationship to move them to action. So I want to salute your personal leadership in that area, and really eager to learn more and see how we can build on your success. And
thank you very much. That means a lot, considering all the amazing stuff you guys are doing down there. What are some of the big takeaways you've seen so far in your time, both here in Wellington and the stuff that we saw down in Christchurch? What are some of the key bits that you've been absorbing at this stage?
I know. I feel like my head's going to explode.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Christchurch and I see what that amazing community is trying to process through, and the powerful partnerships that are being developed between your national government and your local council, and understanding those partnerships, understanding how they're evolving and growing and changing, for us is just really a chance to, as Mayor Lee often says, go down the rabbit hole or go back to the future. Mayor Lee often talks about the trip that he and I took to New Orleans 2 years after their disaster, akin to my visit here, and really get a chance to look forward and see what we're going to be dealing with. And I mean, yesterday when you and I were, or the other day when we were in South Brighton and South Shore with Bill Simpson, who's an amazing leader you have down there, I can't tell you how struck I was at the parallel of sensations I felt in those neighborhoods that have been decimated and homes torn down, to my experience in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. And what I've often told people is that, once you take away the water after an earthquake, you have the same outcomes. You have the same disruption in people's lives, same disruption in communities' existences. And I think for us, the takeaways are incredibly broad, right? Everything from the power and benefit of insurance to perhaps sometimes how it can have a negative impact in how to move forward after recovery. The importance of, when you look at your key cultural assets, like your buildings, all the way down to the local fish and chip shop, is how you manage those assets post-event can have a ripple effect on how people value, appreciate the recovery and their desire to stay. And these are challenges that every city that goes through this, from Chile to Kobe to Christchurch, have to grapple with. And that desire to be shown as being moving forward aggressively and leading and generating outcomes has to be tempered with the understanding that these are agencies, these are institutions that in some cases are hundreds of years old, and that you can't just try and encapsulate the fate of those organizations or those assets in a mere short window. And hindsight's 2020, but that's the challenge, is trying to demonstrate momentum and demonstrate progress at the same time, though, being prudent. And that's the power of government. And that's the difference between government and the private sector. In America, the private sector works on a quarterly basis and has a very short window. And there's often this conversation about how government needs to work more like business. And my vision is actually the opposite. It's kind of like the accelerator and the clutch. Business is the accelerator, government's the clutch. And if business had such a great track record of running the planet, probably we wouldn't have a government. But for some reason we do. And that's I think what's great about New Zealand is the role government's playing in this process. And I think in the long term, it will be lauded for its leadership. And I want to thank the Mayor Leanne Dalziel for her hospitality, as well as all the other amazing folks that have taken the time to share with us. And we're really excited through the Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities campaign, which launches in Christchurch next month, which I know you're going to be part of, to really strengthen that platform, to do that city-to-city sharing. And
Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Just a quick overview of.
Sure. So the Rockefeller Foundation is, like many foundations, is passionate about a world that moves forward collectively, and the most vulnerable residents don't bear the brunt of the impacts of climate change and other stressors that are really growing in frequency as New Zealand is experiencing. And so they've created this initiative where there are 100 cities from all over the world are going to come together and create plans that will be perhaps more uniform than not, in order to create an experience where ideas can be shared and plans can be influenced by the lessons learned of other cities. And so San Francisco is one of those cities, as well as Rome. It's just amazing, a collection of cities around the world. And so Christchurch is one of those cities. And as we know, the culture in New Zealand, Christchurch will probably bring the whole country together around this opportunity. And that for us is, for me personally, is while I love the 14-hour flight down here and the chance to come down here and have an amazing time and experience it, is sometimes I feel very alone, though, because when I go back, the experience of being here is hard to share with folks because it's emotional, it's physical, it's about relationships. And I think that hopefully that platform is going to help advance some of these ideas that I've experienced in a way that will have a deeper penetration, not only in San Francisco, but every city on the planet.
Thank you very much, Danny. That's a really amazing overview, and it's really inspiring to hear all the work you're doing. And we really certainly value the partnership that we have with you folks in San Francisco. So we look forward to having you around for the next few days. I know you're going to be presenting at the Joint Center for Disaster Research, their summer school program. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
And it's an honor on every level to be here today. And I also want to thank the U.S. Embassy for hosting this conversation and their contribution to moving these ideas out there. And it's really important that we see our embassies around the world as being a lot more than just a place to get your passport updated, that it really is an amazing resource to move these ideas virally around. So I want to thank the team here for inviting us down to present today.
Indeed. All the best.
Thank you, sir.